friends, I'm back. So I'm here to wrap up my books that I read in November. I will be honest, November was a bit of a weird reading month. I was able to read 15 things, but midway through the month, I just really wanted to focus on one of my lists that I had read nothing for. And I had created a list at the start of the year, Beat the Backlist Challenge, read books that came out before. I think they all came out in 2021. So a lot of these books are on that I just went up reading, and none of them really wowed me. And I think that's why my reading was pretty stagnant the whole month. I had a lot of 3 and 4 stars. I don't think I had any 5-star reads. But I think that was just because the list didn't go as well as I wanted, and I think because I put books on it I really wasn't any interested in reading, and then I got to the end, I'm like, oh well, I have to read some of them. So yeah, that's where we are. I'm still coming out of my reading slump. I'm getting a little bit better. I definitely listened to a lot more at the start of the month, and these books just didn't wow me, and I think that's why I was struggling to read other things towards the middle and the end of the month. But I did travel. I went to Y'all Fest, so it was fun. So enough about the disclosure, let's get into it. Thank you for joining me for another day of BookMas. So the first book I finished reading in the month was Gilded by Marissa Meyer. This is the first book in her Rumpelstiltskin duology. Overall, I enjoyed this book. I thought it was a fun read. I definitely enjoyed listening to it. Oh my god, I have bookmarks everywhere. But this is her Rumpelstiltskin retelling. It's book 1. And it was fun. I liked it. I probably gave it 4 stars. I definitely like the listening experience a little bit more. But you basically follow this girl. She's a miller's daughter, and she kind of becomes enveloped into a Rumpelstiltskin myth. And it was fun. I liked it. I want to check out Cursed because it definitely ended in a way that didn't shocked me. But basically she tells outlandish tales, and due to that she kind of gets sucked into with this king in this kingdom where they think she can weave she can weave straw into gold, but she can't, and she kind of comes across this fairy that helps her, and that is what happens. The ending was super surprising, so I wound up giving it 4 stars. I definitely do want to check out Cursed. It's probably going to be on my wish list, so yeah, that is one that I'm very, very excited to keep reading, and I enjoyed my listening experience. The next book I picked up was another book on that list, and it was Kingdom of the Cursed. I also did pick up the audiobook for this one as well. The credit was pretty cheap. But this is the second book in the Kingdom of the Cursed series, and I will admit, I did really enjoy Kingdom of the Wicked. This book I liked a little bit more. The setting definitely changed dramatically. It definitely gave me Belladonna vibes. It definitely gave me new adult vibes. This book was set entirely in a different setting, and again, it was sort of surprising. The content of these 2 books were surprising, so I read them pretty much back to back. This I listened to a day that I had to clean from my job, but I liked it. I definitely want to get up Kingdom of the Feared. I think I have the audiobook on hold from my library. But yeah, this was another one that I picked up because it was on that list, and I just didn't get around to reading it earlier. It definitely had spooky and eerie vibes. It definitely gave me Belladonna vibes. The romance definitely gave me vibes like that. So I gave it 4 stars. It was okay. It didn't wow me, but I'm happy that I picked it up. And then I was traveling when I went to Y'all Fest. So the book that I picked up for that was Dust by Kara Swanson. And this is a Peter Pan retelling. I actually got this at ALA a couple of months back. And this is Claire. She is living in London, and her twin brother goes missing, and she wound up going on an adventure with Peter Pan to figure out what happened to her brother. And I think this is probably one of my favorite books of the whole month. It was whimsy, it was fantastical, it was a fun take on Peter Pan, and I really like the main character. I love the world, and I want to get to book 2 super badly. So this is definitely a highlight read for me, and if you're looking for sort of something else with a little bit more Tinkerbell and Hook and Peter Pan vibes, I would recommend this. So yeah, definitely check it out. And I gave this one 4 stars for review. And then the next book I picked up was another audiobook, and that is The Queen Will Betray You, another book on that list. And I'm actually super happy that I read this because it was just a fun read. This was the second book in the Princess Will Save You duology. It definitely gave me Princess vibes. But again, the romance was fun in this read. I will say Again, when you have a trilogy about two characters, and they're separated, a lot does happen. This book, again, sort of like the other ones, went in a direction that I was not expecting. And I think all of these books were not what I was expecting, but they weren't bad. So this one, the first book, like, basically there's a political marriage, and to make sure the princess does what they want, they steal the stable boy who she loves, and things are revealed with both characters as the first book went on. This book had a little bit more political intrigue and a lot more characters. I bought book 3 as an audio, so I might actually try to listen to that sometime in December, but I liked it. Again, all these books were okay. They didn't wow me, but I'm happy that I kept reading, for sure. So I would definitely recommend you read this series. I think it's definitely a series I recommend you read closely back to back. And if you are a fan of the romance, I think you would like book 2. Just know your happily ever after has to be extended just a little bit. And then this was a book I picked up at Y'all Fast. So my goal is to finish Amy Kaufman's backlist and Megan Spooner's backlist in the next couple of months. So I wound up picking up The World Between Blanks, Rebellion of the Lost. This one I picked up just because it was on a table and I thought that the marketing was really, really interesting. Because Amy Kaufman hasn't been here in a while, so they had a stamp for her signature, so when she ever comes back, I'll be bringing this. But yeah, this was a sequel in that duology. It basically solves, like, history's biggest mysteries, and you follow these two cousins as they have to go back to the world between blanks to save the world, and I liked it. I gave it 3 stars. It was a fun read. Definitely a fun middle grade series, and I think it's a series that you could use in a history class and kind of discuss mysteries. It was fun. I like both writing styles. I like the cousin dynamics, and it was great. It was a fun read, and I gave it 3.5 stars for review. And then another middle grade that I picked up for the TBR and Beyond challenge I was doing was Lightcasters Umber Tales by Janelle McCurdy. This book has a couple of different titles because I think it had a different title in England, but this follows a main character named Mia, and her society is all in darkness because light has been stolen, and she, after her parents go missing, she and her little brother have to go on an adventure to save the day. And I love this. I love the dynamics between her and her brother. I also just really loved the magic system and the creatures. I just got a new puppy, and I love the way that these animals interacted with Mia, and just the dynamics between her and her brother and the secrets that were revealed. It was fun. I'm not sure if this is going to be a series, but I enjoyed it, and it's probably one of my favorite middle grades I read this month, and I gave it 3.75 stars for review. If you are looking for something that has these sort of some elements similar to Shadow and Bone with the darkness being a villain, I would definitely check this one out. I'll be honest, the next book was a bit of a disappointment, but I did wind up picking up Gallant by V.E. Schwab, and I will admit, this book really disappointed me. I went in with super high expectations because I normally love V.E. Schwab's writing style. The thing about this book is that it just had no plot. It was all vibes and no plot. So you basically follow a main character named Olivia, and she is sort of in a bad situation. She's living in an orphanage. Her parents have died. She gets a letter one day telling her to go to Gallant, where she will be, you know, welcomed by family. When she got there, things are not as she seems. And I feel like until we got, like, we have maybe about 100 pages left, that's really when the plot picked up. And as much as I enjoyed the characters, I didn't feel connected to them. And, like, this book was all vibes. There was also, like, drawings in it, what I thought was interesting. There was also a part that was just all the library book, where, a book. It had so many elements that I liked, but the tension was not here. And I gave this book 3 stars. It was compelling to read, I will say that. Like, I didn't really want to put it down. I just kept hoping the tension would get better, but it never did. 3 stars. Definitely one of my most disappointing reads of the month. And this book just didn't work for me. So I'm sorry for that. But it was okay. It just wasn't what I was looking for. And then I also picked up an audiobook called Grave Reservations, which has to do with a, she plans trips for people, and she's also a psychic. So I will show you a picture of that one. And again, this one was, like, fine. It didn't wow me. It was okay, but, like, she basically had to work with this cop to solve a murder. And I think what Books and Lala said was very, very true. It was a lot of a lot of discussing and not a lot of action. So if you like your like cozy mysteries like that, I think you'd like it. I definitely want to check out book 2 because I thought it was interesting. I really liked the characters. It wasn't my favorite cozy mystery series that I've ever read. So that was like a 3.5-star read for me as well, but I had to read that for the TBR and Beyond reading group as well. So the next book was definitely a shock and a surprise, but I actually really enjoyed it. And I picked up White Smoke by Tiffany D. Jackson. I had to read a BIPOC horror book, and this was the one that got picked. This one was a pleasant surprise. I read Grown by this author earlier this year. I liked it. I did not love it. This one I did like, though. So you basically follow a main character named Marigold. I also did pick up the audiobook for this one as well. And she winds up moving to this new town and this new haunted-ish house with her new stepfather and his new daughter, and they are white and she's black. And she is convinced this house is haunted. She has a lot of stuff in her past that makes it a little bit hard for people to believe her. She did have a marijuana addiction, and she's some very obsessive compulsive tendencies. But she is convinced this house is haunted. And I enjoyed how Tiffany D. Jackson did this. They also have a cute German Shepherd puppy in this book, which made me think of my puppy Cassie. I wanted a little bit hesitant because I was afraid that they were going to hurt the dog. They didn't. There was no animal violence in here. Some moments where you might think something's going to happen to the dog, but nothing does at all. But I liked it. I enjoyed it. I think her being in Marigold's head was a little bit hard, I will admit, because she does have a lot of obsessive compulsive tendencies. And if you are dealing with that, you might find it very hard to be in her head. But I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. And I definitely want to go back and read her other books because I think that this book was stronger for me than Grown, but still a very good writing style. And I enjoyed it. And I don't really like horror, and I enjoyed this. So take that for what it's worth. And then the next book that I picked up was for the cozy readathon that I did this weekend, and that is Mysteries of Thorn Manor by Margaret Rogerson. This is the companion book to Sorcery of Thorns, and it comes out in 2023. It's a little bit under 200 pages, and it follows Silas and Nathaniel and Elizabeth as they try to get the house in order after book 1. And I liked it. Again, I would definitely recommend you would have had to have read Sorcery of Thorns to read this. But if you want a little bit more of an adventure between these characters, I would definitely check it out. It wasn't my favorite thing in the world. It was fun. It felt like it was a little bit rushed at points. But again, it's only 200 pages. And if you have enjoyed those character dynamics, I would definitely pick this one up. And another book that I read for the TBR and Beyond reading game was Read a Book with Blood on the Cover. So I picked up They'll Never Catch Us by Jessica Goodman, and I enjoyed this. I think this book is, again, probably one of my favorites along with White Smoke. And these were on those lists. I had some duds, but I also had some really good ones. So this follows 2 sisters who are very competitive. They're on their school's like running team, and something happens that sort of puts the spotlight on them, and there is a murderer surrounding their team. There also is a potential serial killer on the loose, and these girls are under the hot seat. It also focuses very much on complicated sister dynamics and also the complexity of coach and athlete dynamics. I will say there is the talk of abortion, unhealthy coach dynamics, but also there's just a lot of harder topics in this read. I enjoyed it. I gave it 4.5 stars, and I think I liked it a lot more than her first book, but it does deal with harder topics, and I felt the ending was like a little bit rushed, but I enjoyed it, and definitely a new favorite by this author. So I am doing a reread of Harry Potter with MuggleCast, and I know that J.K. Rowling is super, like, we have a lot of issues. I do. But I also just love these creators, and I want to keep supporting them. So they're doing a reread, and I'm going to be participating. I just want to say one of my 15 books is the first Harry Potter book, but I am reading it in a group setting. It's really fun. We read a chapter every week, and I just love hearing their takes on the story, especially like reading this book like as like 30-year-olds. I think it's interesting, and I just really like the creators. If you are interested in tagging along, I will try to link the podcast in the description below, but if not, just type in MuggleCast on Spotify. We just finished book 1, so you could probably catch up, but they are really great creators, and I love giving them a shout out when I can. They are my Harry Potter friends that I think have a good understanding of the whole J.K. Rowling of the situation, and I think that that's important. So I don't necessarily support J.K. Rowling anymore, but I do support creators that I like, and Laura, Micah, Andrew, and Eric are definitely my Harry Potter fans, and maybe they could be yours too. And then the next couple of books I read, and I was, again, really fearing I would fall into a reading slump, but I also picked up Dealing with Dragons by Patricia C. Wren. This was a book recommendation I got from KJ Armstrong. She has a podcast, and she was telling us the book that, like, really transformed her as a child, and I picked this one up. I enjoyed it. I really liked the listening experience to this, and it just gave me, like, Land of Stories vibes. But basically, you have a main character. Oh, I don't know what her name is. But she really doesn't want to be a princess. She doesn't want to get married. She doesn't want to do any of the things that a normal girl does in this society. So she runs away and becomes a servant to dragons. And everyone is telling her that is not how things are done. And she goes on an adventure. And it was fun. I gave it 3 stars. I definitely think that once I picked up the audiobook, I think it was a bit more successful. But I liked it. I gave it 3.5 stars, and I will probably, if possible, get the audio for more books in the future series. But yeah, this was a fun one, and it definitely made me see why Kate liked it. I think this book came out in, like, 1953, I think, so it was quite an older book, but I still thought it had a good message. I thought that it was, some of the moments were a little bit repetitive, but I did like the characters, and definitely did give me Land of Stories vibes. So if you're looking for something with sort of like a fairy tale vibe like that, I'd pick this one up because I thought it was fun. And then the last 2 books I read were actually by the same author, and one was my 200th book of the year. So XOXO by Axie O was a book that was on that list. And I have to admit, I enjoyed this. I don't think it was my favorite contemporary ever, but it was a fun read. So you basically follow a main character named Jenny, and she winds up meeting this guy randomly when she's living with her mom in California. Her uncle runs like a karaoke bar, and then he vanishes, he goes, and she winds up having to unexpectedly move to Korea, and she winds up encountering this young man again, and his identity is a bit shocking, I will say that, and they have to kind of go on an adventure and a relationship with each other. I like this book. She is a cello prodigy in this book, and that is a school she goes to. And I felt like that element was a little bit lackluster, and I felt like the balance of her life between her husband, her potential boyfriend and her friends and her cello, really, it was a bit uneven. But I also do understand that she really lived a very, very sheltered life. So I felt like the balance that the story created was fun, but it was a romance. It was fun. I felt like Korea was like a really fun character in the story, and I enjoyed it. I gave it like 3.75 stars. I just wish we got the male lead's point of view, because I think that I would have understood his character a little bit more. The ending was a little bit rushed, and I wasn't totally on board with the relationship, but I love the friendship dynamics, and I love the relationship she sort of had with her grandmother as the book went on. So I gave this book like, 3.75 stars, and then I went on to read my last book of the month, which was The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. This is her fantasy debut, and I really like this. Again, I picked up the audiobook as well. It's a very lyrical read, and you basically follow a main character named Mina, and she has to sacrifice herself so her brother's girlfriend is not taken by the sea god, and then she goes on an adventure to save not only the underworld but also her little community. And it was a fun read. It was very, very lyrical, and because of that, I didn't feel as connected to the main characters as I wanted to. So I only give this one like 3.75 stars, but her writing is just stunning. And just the thing with both of these books is I didn't feel that connected to the characters. So, and I'm very much a character-led reader. But yeah, those are all the books that I read in the month of November. Again, I had some highs and some lows and some inconsistent reads. But I hope that you liked this video. Let me know in the comments what are some of your highlight reads that you've read recently. I would love to hear about them, and I'll talk to you guys soon for the next day of BookMas. Bye, friends.